Um, Fortunately, we we do have a way that people are able to overcome it. And when I say overcome it, we mean overcome it, not just live more comfortably with it or manage it or better or anything like that, but really be able to not be affected by it and just live your life. Um, and the best part is because most people wonder, all right, like exposure therapy, I don't want to do that. It doesn't involve exposure because exposure, for the most part, with this particular phobia, does not work well anyway. So, Lauren will kick it off. The whole purpose of this is just to give you some insight. There's a lot of, you should hopefully have a lot of aha moments, a lot of wow, really never thought of it that way, and that's really what all this is about. And so that you leave feeling motivated and empowered and having learned something. So, and ask any questions, everybody, as you'd like to in the comments, and we will try to address them. And that's it. So, go ahead, Lauren.
Two different people told me I'm glitchy. Can you see me okay?
I can see you. Yeah, it's a tiny bit glitchy, but it just looks like you're using a phone from 1985. I
Great. Okay.
can see you
Um,
now.
so just interrupt me if I break up during anything that I'm trying to say. But yeah, I really like the point that you made about exposure therapy because emetophobia is on a different level than other phobias. So it can't really be compared to like being afraid of a snake or heights or things like
Yep.
that because it involves all of the different component parts that we understand make up, mental health issues. So it really is one of the worst things to deal with and try to overcome. So it isn't necessarily easy, but it is simple. And I
Yeah.
think that is something that is really important when it comes to giving people hope. Um, and also why it's important not to just jump into random therapies like exposure therapy because we understand through research and observation that it just does not work for emetophobia. So um, yeah, I was just going to kind of share something from a blog I wrote, which is just a little funny story about to explain that. Well, let me start off by saying the reason this live is called emetophobia is not scary, rather than being sick isn't scary, is because it was one of the most Googled things surrounding emetophobia, which I'm not really sure why, but I guess a lot of people feel that emetophobia is a scary thing. So I wanted to just bring out the fact that it's not the thing that's scary, it's how we view the thing. So the story that I was using as a metaphor was when I was young, one of my first, or actually my first pet was a little green snake. And I fell in love with him. I thought he looked like he was smiling all the time. He was so cute. I loved holding him. But my dad, who lived in the same house as me, was terrified of snakes. And the thing is, he didn't even differentiate between a little cute green snake and a venomous snake. And that's kind of what happens when we have these thinking styles, is that, or unhelpful thinking styles, is that we just sort of put everything all together and we don't differentiate. We just go, that thing is scary, and then we associate everything related to that thing. And that's kind of how we also start getting into avoidance techniques. So, oh, Ashley, can you see us okay now or no? Can everybody in the chat just confirm that you can hear us and see us? I'm hoping that it's okay. Hopefully I can get that internet fixed too.
You look completely clear now. Everything looks fine now.
Much better. Okay, great. So what is the difference between? Thanks, Ashley. So what is the difference then between somebody like me looking at a snake as like cute, right? It's a completely different understanding of somebody who's literally terrified, will run in, like can't even be in the same household. It's not the person and it's not the snake. It's the conclusion. So a lot of people don't know that we're not really actually experiencing reality, but reality through a series of lenses. and filters and cognitive biases, which is the box in the middle. So you have the actual experience or the thing like the snake, and then there's a box in the middle of our processing, and oftentimes it also happens in like milliseconds. So we're not even aware of this. And then so inside of that box, for example, my father might have had, he might have created a lot of different associations or past experiences and things like that with snakes. Maybe he saw some movies that told him snakes are really scary. All snakes are dangerous. They're ugly. They're monsters. Maybe he had a friend when he was a kid that told him that. It just, a lot of these thinking styles happen when we're in our childhood. So when I was in my childhood, my first experience was a positive one. So really, it's not the snake. It is how we process the snake that is the actual experience, and what we experience is our reality. Did you want to
So
speak?
he also could have, did he ever like pick up a snake or like have a crazy experience that he thought freaked him out?
I'd have to ask him that. I don't think so. I think it was just a series of maybe just unhelpful beliefs,
Yes.
or just a conclusion that he drew over time. Not being exposed to them. So he lived in a more of like a suburban area growing up. Maybe that's why, because often if we're exposed to things, we realize over and over that it's okay. Like, so for example, I sent you a video of that giant spider that was in my room the other day.
Yeah.
Well, for some reason, we've been having a lot of them. And the first time I saw it, I freaked out. I was like, well, I didn't freak out, but I was like, oh, this thing is huge and ugly, and I don't want it in the room. And it was funny because I came downstairs the other day, and there was one just sitting on my packages. And I was like, oh, hi. I was like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
He's there. Okay. And he was just chilling. And I realized that it wasn't a threat. He wasn't like jumping on my face. He wasn't, he was just kind of actually shy and interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of exposed myself to that over a series of a few weeks of having these strange spiders in our house. I don't know why they're in here, but it's interesting when you're aware of your processes, and you can kind of, I love that about Thrive. I love that Thrive gives you that ability where you can step outside of yourself, that you can see things more objectively.
A good way to, and another good analogy, if you just step back from the whole emetophobia thing, because it's the same exact thing. If two people in two different, or actually you could say two people get in a car accident in different cars, one person has a strong belief in their ability to drive, and they don't drink, they don't think catastrophically, and they're positive. They'll come away from that car accident thinking, wow, I'm a good driver. That could have been so much worse. I am so glad that I didn't kill myself because I was able to swerve, like, go me, no big deal. They'll get back on the road the next day. The other person who has those unhelpful thinking styles, they think catastrophically, they brood, they think that was the worst thing in the world, they don't think that they're a good driver, they'll come away from that experience worrying about it all night, worrying about it the next day, telling every single person that they know what the hell just happened and how it was the worst thing in the world. Those people will create a phobia and they will not drive anymore. It's the same exact thing. It's not the situation that is inherently scary, because how could it be if one person is perfectly fine and doesn't mind, whereas the other person never drives again? It's the same exact thing with emetophobia. It's not the thing. It's the fact that you have such a high desire to be in control. You can't control this thing. So you are so petrified of losing control and not being able to control the way you feel, your emotions, your heart beating fast, things like that. So when we say emetophobia isn't scary, it's not the throwing up that people are afraid of. They're afraid of losing control of their emotions and things like that. And once you realize that, that's when you make the link between, and first of all, that's why exposure is not going to work, because if they just go show you a bunch of videos of people throwing up, it's not about throwing up anyway. That's not going to help you. What's going to help you is feeling more feeling stronger in your ability to tolerate discomfort, things like that, so that if you do lose control in any situation,
Mm-hmm.
you can tolerate it and it's going to be okay. You might not love it, but that's
Right.
all it takes. And that's why people are able to overcome emetophobia in 8 weeks. And like Lauren was saying, it takes work, but it is simple to do. It's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the work that it does take is actually enjoyable because one of the things that you realize, and I'm sure you experience this with just generalized anxiety, is as you go through the program, those big scary thoughts, it's almost like somebody puts a damper on them in your head. It's like you go from having like 40 or 50,000 of them a day, and suddenly they just shrink and you don't hear them anymore and they don't exist anymore and they don't control your life anymore. They don't control your decisions anymore. They don't, or feel like they're controlling. And that's what's fun about the program, is because each week that you go, you're feeling better and better. And, it's not, it's not like therapy at all. You can see the results. You can feel the results like immediately.
Well, and you
So,
leave the session feeling empowered and excited. You have homework that's fun to do. Every day you're feeling better and better and better. You're not just thinking about, well, how was this created? What happened? Because you can't change
right.
the past. And FYI, for anybody on here who doesn't realize it, everybody, pretty much all of our clients have the same exact story.
Mm-hmm.
They had some kind of traumatic event when they were 8, 9, 10, something like that. They think that is what triggered it, but that's not what happened. There was something, they already had all these negative ways of thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
emetophobia was just the perfect thing for them to kind of latch onto. It could have been anything. It could have been any phobia. It just happens to be that one thing that they blew out of proportion and they think is happening to them, and it's they live their whole lives like that. They don't realize that they can get over it quickly. There's a lady who got over it for having it 75 years. And she did it herself. She only needed one session, but she mostly did it herself with the manual. So nobody is like, oh my God, I've had it too long. You don't understand. It's too complicated. It's everybody's was created the same exact way, and the solution for everybody's to get over it, it's the same exact thing. It's predictable and it's simple.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That it's not, each person has their own journey, but the steps along the journey are the same. And I wanted to address something in particular for Mindy, who's on. She's been talking about, like, I said, well, did something happen? Was your son sick? What's going on with you recently? And she said that she was just feeling like a lot of anxiety in general. And the funny thing about that is that, like, it's not the emetophobia, it's that if you're feeling external and you're feeling like extra, like you're creating a lot of stress and anxiety in your life already, it's almost like this, each person can have their own like thing that it gravitates towards, almost like maybe if you're scared of driving, it's going to manifest like that. And I told her, I said, look, it's just how you're processing your experiences in your life right now that's making the emetophobia sort of, in a sense, come out.
Right.
It's because it's those thinking styles. And that's what's so great about it and predictable, is that if you address the thinking styles, then the thoughts about the anxiety or emetophobia start to fade. And that's why it's important to keep up with that sense of power and control over your environment, because otherwise, it's not that the phobia can come back. It's just it's almost like if you're in a boat, the lake's going to come in where that crack was already kind of established,
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
so you got to kind of be aware of that, especially after you finish the program. Like, oh, I'm starting to feel these feelings again. But you have the skills and the tools now to say, no, I'm not going to let that happen. Because you recognize it, it gives you that education and the power in order to to address it immediately, and then you don't go so far off of your helpful path. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah. But the best part about that is the way that we're doing this. It's not about just getting rid of emetophobia, and we know that people who come to us, that's what they want. Get rid of this thing for me. The way to overcome it is by raising your self-esteem, which probably doesn't make any sense, but that is one of the things. Lowering your social anxiety and just learning to tolerate things in life that you can't control, but also things in life. When you do those three things, you will not have emetophobia. That's when it goes away. You won't have OCD. You won't have eating disorders. Those things only exist when you have the opposite of those three things. So it's so much more than just overcoming what you're dealing with. It's because you can apply those things to all areas of your life, your relationships, your job, things like that. Somebody just asked a minute ago what the physical symptoms are. Well, what physical symptoms are most common with emetophobia? I can't answer that, but Lauren, you can answer that.
I do want to, Ashley and Mindy, we're going to get to your comments in a second. Physical symptoms. The ironic thing about emetophobia is that one of the main symptoms is nausea and anxiety and panic and shaking, often like lumps in the throat kind of feeling. I've had that sometimes for months in a row. That was not fun. But oftentimes you can create like IBS symptoms, things like that. You definitely lower your self-esteem. Okay, that's not physical. I would say the main one is lowering the main two that emetophobes need to pay attention to is the fact that when you do this to yourself, when you're brooding, when you're ruminating, you're actually lowering your immune system and your ability to then fight off, like the stomach bug or any kind of thing that would threaten your immune system.
Yeah.
So the most helpful thing you can actually do is to be strong mentally and to have those coping skills in place. And then the other one is nausea. So I know, Mindy, that you said that you've been feeling nauseous, and I'm not saying that your thoughts are causing that. That could very well be a physical issue that you're having right now. But the emetophobia certainly does not help that. Our brains are very, very powerful. And one of the things that you learn in the Thrive program is about priming yourself. So the more that you're ruminating about something, you're actually priming yourself to create that. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I'm thinking about being nauseous all the time, your brain and body connection is so strong that your body is like, oh, we're doing that right now. And it can actually manifest those symptoms. That's actually how IBS works. And you can see that because I think Rob was saying on the stressometer needle that we also talk about in the program, if you can keep it below, I think it is 5, then a lot of your symptoms won't come out. So if you're an emetophobe, that means that could mean you're not going to have nausea and the lump in the throat, for example. If you have IBS, that means that you're not going to have sore stomach, diarrhea. If you're, I'm trying to think of some other things. If you have OCD or you're creating OCD, you're not going to start acting out on those behaviors if you can keep your stress levels low. So that's another thing that we teach in the Thrive program is how to manage stress and anxiety so that those symptoms don't start coming out and that you don't start spiraling out of control into what we call a blip.
And I just thought of something really quick that I just want to go back to because the whole belief is so massively important to this and all mental health things that people are struggling with. You need to realize that, so like when we call this emetophobia is not scary, it's not inherently scary. A perfect example, I was just watching one of the Jackass movies the other day with my girlfriend, and they're all throwing up, they're laughing, they're throwing up on each other, they're seeing each other throw up, and that's making them throw up, and they're laughing. They don't care. It's not the thing that is inherently scary. If you have a belief that this thing outside of you, this phobia, makes you feel scared or makes you feel nauseous or makes you feel any of these things that you can't control, then you're going to feel all those things. That's your belief. You, by definition, your belief, you came to the conclusion, this thing makes me scary. If I'm afraid of spiders, I think spiders are scary, have to stay away from spiders, I can't go near it because it makes me feel awful, I don't want anything to do with it. That's just my belief. So that there's so much of this is just changing the belief. That's what it is, and that's another reason why exposure is not going to work. And talk about, or you can maybe answer one of the other questions, but I wanted you to definitely talk about the 26 components that we all have, the piece of the recipe, and why some people have emetophobia and some won't, even though we all have the same capacity to have all these things working for us or against us.
Okay, yeah, I can do that real quick. I think Ashley had mentioned, and I don't. I'm just reading what she said. Right, Mindy, it has to do with control. And I had realized that before I did the Thrive program, and I had thought to myself, well, what's the difference between if I'm doing it and I have a stomach bug? Oh yeah, it feels like something is happening to me that I can't control. It's all about that high desire for control that we teach about in the that we coach you to understand in the program. Once you understand how you think and why you think, you're going to have the ability to manage it, and then that's powerful, empowering in itself, is because you start to understand yourself. And then Ashley was talking about a memory. Now what Ashley shared is it's disturbing to me because, and I know her story, it's because, and oftentimes people do have do have things in the past that they attribute the phobia to, and certainly her mother treating her that way is not right. It wasn't right. And Ashley, one of the main reasons that we kind of created emetophobia is because we copy the beliefs and thinking styles mostly of our parents and the people around us. So if she was dealing with her children in an unhelpful way, that's definitely going to affect you. And what you need to understand is that's not your fault, but it is your fault. I'm sorry, it is your responsibility now to address the rest of your life. And you can take responsibility. So it's not your fault, but you can still take charge and responsibility for what happens in the future to you. And part of that is actually forgiveness, but that's for another life. So well, Rob says 26 to 28 component parts. I really need to write them down so I can look at them. But you can kind of think of them, the way he breaks them down, and he takes mental health, which is like seeming like this big scary thing, and he breaks it down into like a cake recipe, which when I first saw that video, it just like, I was a light bulb moment. I was like, wow, because it just feels so elusive. It feels so ambiguous. It feels like there's all these different doctors and treatments and things like that, and it just feels like this big scary monster. But it's not. It's actually really predictable, and like you can't make something without the component parts. So like, for example, you can't have depression without rumination or brooding, thinking style. You probably can't have, let's see, I wanted to say obsessive compulsive without a bit of paranoia, perhaps. Can you think of some examples? I'm trying to think of some. I definitely know about emetophobia.
Well, like depression. So in our program, we boil depression down to two things: having a very, very high desire for control and feeling powerless. That's one thing, and then brooding on that. And that's why that's one of the easiest things for people to overcome with our program, because it's only two of those 26 to 28 components. Emetophobes are more complex.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just I'm trying to think of, yeah, so it's almost like if you had let's say 25 of those components, if you had all of those, but you didn't think that throwing up and throw up was disgusting, you wouldn't have emetophobia.
Right.
You would still have a very high desire for control. You would not want to lose control. You would have something. You would definitely have something, but it wouldn't be emetophobia.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's just it's so predictable. And like, so the people that are on here, I've never met any of you besides Lauren, and I I can prove how predictable it is. You hate the thought of losing control. You probably wash your hands 100 times a day. You probably check the sell by dates on your food 100 times a day. You don't like going to restaurants. You don't. You need to make sure that the chicken is cooked. It's everybody's is pretty much the same. And the reason I'm giving you this example, it's not to say, hey, I'm a mind reader, I know this stuff. It's if something is predictable and you understand it, you know how to overcome it. That's the point that I'm trying to get across. It's not this big mysterious thing. We don't know why you have it, and that's how it can feel some way sometimes. Because if you go to a doctor and say I have a emetophobia, a lot of them will say, "What the hell is a emetophobia?" It's not this big, scary, crazy thing that is like you can't figure out. It's very predictable.
Yes.
So that's good because it means that you're able to do something about it.
I was just reading I was reading the comments because somebody earlier said, I don't know if he or she is still on, but they said emetophobia is scary to me, and I wanted to title it that way on purpose because it is catchy. Because of course you're going to be like, what are you talking about? It's terrifying.
Yep.
And I think that the first thing that you need to understand when you're thinking about getting it out of your life is what you just said, because that gives you a sense of hope. Because I'm sure everybody on here and anybody who's suffered with it has got that response before. And that is the most frustrating, sad. Like, I remember when I would go to my therapist and they would say, I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of it. I'm
Yeah.
like, you
How?
feel like you feel so
Yeah.
scared. You feel like, how is this person supposed to help me at all if they don't even know what it is? And it's a complex,
Yeah.
big, scary thing to me. So, and I've tried overcoming it with myself. And oh, there you are. I used to throw out so much food. I save so much money in the long run. Oh, okay. So you overcame.
That could be a testimonial
Is
for
it?
good time.
Oh, I know. I love that. That's actually a fantastic. I experienced the same thing. You know what I would do? I would eat, and I would be really hungry, and I would eat, and then I would stop. I would get scared about 2/3 of the way through, and kind of push my plate away and go, I don't know about this. What if I get sick? And then I would throw out the rest.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can relate to that. That's great.
But like the other, what the other person was saying before, emetophobia is scary to me. That's their belief, and that's a huge reason why they have this. If I somehow created a belief that these post-it notes were scary, they're going to be scary. Our brains, by their very nature, try to confirm our beliefs.
Right.
So if you think it's scary, you will be afraid of it. It will be scary to you. That is your reality. It's not the truth. It's not a truth. It's not something that you can't change. So that's why the way to overcome it is by changing your beliefs. And there's so much more to it than just us
Yeah.
saying, well, just change your belief. That we help clients do that, but that is essentially what is happening. And again,
Yeah.
why, if you went to exposure and they said, well, look at this picture of throw up, you're gonna be like, it's gross. It's still gross. I hate it, because you're not getting to the root
Right.
of what's actually going on.
Yeah, and no other therapy does get to the root. And I'm so happy that you overcame in 6 weeks. That's actually
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh my God,
Took me
47 years.
12. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. If you know anyone else that's still suffering, please tell them about our lives. We're here to help people. Um, I know exactly what it feels like, and Matt knows what it feels like to live with anxiety. So that's our goal, is to change the world and make it a better
Yeah.
place. And how many emetophobes are there? Did you say 49 million?
I just
Something crazy?
no, I just read something. Hang on, I just saw this on the website before, the Emetophobia free website. I think just in America and the UK there are 10 million.
Wow. Yeah, so that kind of piggybacks off what you were saying earlier, is that they all think the same way, they do the same
Yeah.
things. It's the same with depression, it's the same with anxiety, it's the same with people with fear of flying, smoking cigarettes, and that's what Rob kind of figured out after 30 plus years of working with people. He sort of streamlined how to deal with all those different things with these key components. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of people don't really talk about those key components as much, but I always go back to them, because that predictability, and that just like, I think Lucy has like, she literally made like a Lego brick wall, and she wrote all the different things on it, like you were saying, disgust propensity and things like that. And when you look at it and you see it and you go, that's what I'm dealing with, you can just pull the pieces off, and then you can build it back in a strong, powerful way.
Yeah.
And I love that. And Mindy, well, you can talk to me. You have my phone number. I guess with coaches, you sort of want to pick somebody who you can go to the website and get matched with somebody that you, based on your personality, or you can choose yourself, or you can just find somebody who's practicing on social media and reach out to them. It's really super easy. They'll sign you up. They'll give you we do free consultations, 30-minute discovery calls, just to meet and greet and see, if we'd be a good match. What are you saying, Ashley? Far away from me? The comments are moving so fast I can't see. Wait, I just want to scroll up really quick. Can I scroll up? That's a lot. My doctor office, I went to the nurse. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. And Ashley has a sister who's also, I want to make the point, Ashley's sister also struggles with emetophobia, and now her two daughters are struggling with emetophobia, which goes to show you that it is not something you're born with. You're not born with this. It's learned. It's created.
Yeah. I was so glad you said that, because if you didn't, I was going to stop you and make you explain that, because people would probably be like, well, yeah, they're all in the same family, they're all going to have it, it's genetic. No, it's because they all think the same. They're all copying each other. The kids are copying the parents, and they're all growing up to have this same thing. If they adopted a kid, the adopted kid would probably have it too.
Right. And some kids are a little bit more hardy, and they're not going to necessarily pick that up, but they might pick something else up. Maybe they are terrified of driving. So it just depends on what that person sort of kind of processed as scary. And I will say, I think emetophobia feels so scary because if you really think about throwing up, it's one of the things in our lives that doesn't happen very often. So you were mentioning, I just want to make the point that you were mentioning about cars. People don't build phobias of driving, even if they're in a really bad car accident, very often. Why? Because they must get into the car and drive to work the next day to feed their family.
Yeah.
They have to expose themselves. So they may feel, and this happened to one of my friends in high school. She got in a really bad car accident. She almost died. She turned her SUV, and for the first couple of times, she was like, "Can you drive me?" But then we started practicing her getting into the driver's seat and then exposing herself again, and she's obviously fine. But with throwing up, and it often happens when they're young, and that can feel like sort of like a scary experience when you're young. I mean, you feel sick, you feel hot, you don't know what's going on, and I think that's an event that can be processed in a very powerless way very easily. That's all I'm trying to say. So I think that's why it's one of the more common big phobias, if you will. Like, people aren't scared of the color yellow because it's everywhere and they're exposed to it, or, you know what I mean?
So that's a good point. So if you had the kind of parent who, if you're throwing up if they're saying, hey, it's going to be okay, it's not a big deal, you can deal with this, it's natural, this is your body's way of helping you. If they're talking about it like that, you're probably not going to develop emetophobia. If your parent, and you're young, let's say you're 6, 7, 8, if they run to the other side of the house, I can't look at that, oh my God, it's disgusting, and they're trying to help you, but they're like, you're going to realize that this has to be scary. This has to be the worst thing in the
Right.
world. But this adult is clearly afraid of it, and you're right there in that moment is probably when you're going to create the phobia. Right then, because of that.
Yeah, all it takes is one
I
event.
like that with my kids.
Yeah. All it takes is one event that you process it in a powerless, scary way. And then another thing, you guys, is that if you just have one event like that, even if you're older and you do that, it doesn't matter what it is. What happens is, like Matt was saying, is your brain then has a cognitive bias and it looks for that. It looks for signs that this thing is scary or a threat. And part of that is our human nature, and it's designed in us to keep us from danger. The problem is that thing wasn't actually dangerous, but we processed it like it was an actual threat to our to survival in a sense. So, what was the point I was going to make?
I think so. You were saying your brain is going to be hypervigilant, seeing everything related to throwing up as a threat.
And then
You're trying to confirm that belief.
Yes, and once you confirm it, it grows. It gets bigger, and what you do is you reinforce it yourself. So then, after 40 years, you're going to go, I've had this thing for so long. I've been struggling it. It's so big. And with emetophobia, what's really important is you need to work on it now, because it gets worse. It will get worse because the way our brains are designed, make it bigger and bigger and scarier and scarier. And that's why you become agoraphobic. Like, that's what happened to me. It just became so big, and everything started being so scary. It was like, oh no, that's a 1% chance. And then you start categorizing it, and you're obsessing over it, and then your brain looks for evidence.
Yeah.
You look for evidence that thing is scary.
Yeah. But then also on top of that, the fact that we mentioned before, if you go to the doctor and you say I have emetophobia and they say I don't know what that is, you're going to be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy who's supposed to be a genius that's making $400,000 a year? He doesn't even know what this is.
Right.
And then you try exposure therapy and that doesn't work. Then you are really going to feel helpless because you're going to say, nobody knows how to fix me. What is going on? And that's why we call it the secret phobia, because you think that there is something so wrong with you that not even these professionals can help you.
Yeah.
And that's why this program was built on 30 years of this guy's experience and hundreds of research papers of what works, and boiled it down into how to make that happen in weeks, which is why you might see it and be like 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, right, that's a scam. That's not going to work. I've had emetophobia for decades. That's exactly what he did. He made it so it doesn't have to take 75 years like one of our clients to get over it, and you can get over it in weeks. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
And,
they really know what it is. Well, and the other thing too is you're gonna hear, well, nobody likes it. Nobody likes throwing up. That's what you'll hear. People just don't get it. They just don't get it.
I'm actually writing I have another blog I started based on that concept, because, nobody wants to hear that. Like Mindy, she just had this experience, and no, Matt, not. He's had pretty bad anxiety, though.
The displeasure of having panic attacks and generalized anxiety for like 24 years, and I got over it in like 3.5 weeks.
What was I gonna say? I forgot what I was saying.
I shouldn't have cut you off. I'm sorry. That was my fault.
No, it's fine. It was probably not even that important. I think it had to do with the doctors. What was I saying? Oh, Mindy's impressed with you.
Well, I was a perfect example of what I was just talking about. I tried everything. I tried all kinds of talk therapy and mindfulness, breathing exercises, SSRIs, all this stuff. Nothing worked. and then this worked, and I made my girlfriend go through it because I was like, holy crap, this works, and you have to do it. And that's why I became a coach. I had no intention of becoming a coach, but I was like, we need to get this in front of people because it's well known in the UK, but not here in America. And people just feel stuck and feel hopeless. And, you know, Lauren is a perfect example of somebody who had, 20 something years?
I literally didn't remember a time when I wasn't afraid. I would have panic attacks in my bed at night as a child, like 4 or 5 years old. You can ask my mom if she's still on. Like, I would, I think there you go. You got a client. Yeah. No.
You were saying you used to have panic attacks in bed.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, and it really doesn't matter how long you've had something for. And I was gonna ask Mindy if she. I didn't get a chance to talk to you after your ER experience. Did they just try to give you medication? I meant to ask you that. I mean, unless you don't want to share, that's fine. I just figured that was the response, and I wanted to talk. Yep, exactly. I wanted to talk about that because it was very frustrating to me. Because that's what they do. They just give you this pill that it doesn't help correct the root of the problem. Okay. So here's Mindy can't even at this point in time with her mental health. She doesn't even feel comfortable taking Ativan because it probably says on the list of side effects, nausea, like vomit.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even read those anymore.
Yeah. No, but understandable. But they think, all right, you just take this and you'll be good. That's what happened to me. I told the doctor I didn't. You know, I have anxiety. All right, take this and come back in a month, and we'll see if you need more. What the dosage has to be. It's like they don't have that kind of training. They literally, I don't think, have that kind of training.
Right. Yeah, and medication, you know, I'm pretty careful when I talk to people about it. Like, I wasn't going to be like, oh, don't take it. It's just that what you have to understand about taking a medication is that it actually is unhelpful because it can make you feel more external and more powerless over your experience. So you have everything that you need inside of you already to overcome those feelings, to calm yourself down. You can get out of a panic attack. You do not need a medication. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter, you know, like my mom. You know, I kind of talked her through like going in for an MRI. She's like, well, or maybe it's a dentist. And you just tell yourself, I need this thing because I'm going to react this way. But you actually have everything that you need inside of you in order to cope with and tolerate any of those situations. It could be needles, you know, going under, anything. So taking medication actually sets you up in a sense to feel less powerful in your life. And I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, but then there is also another side of that, and we like literally never talk about medication because again, this is a training program. We're not doctors, we're not therapists. We don't care what the diagnosis is. We train you how to manage your thinking so that you overcome all this crap that's ruining your life. But I can see an instance where if you're ready to put the work in and work hard and do the exercises and the stuff with the coach, where if you need to take something just to sort of get yourself back to neutral so that you can sit and read a manual and do the things, like do the exercises and stuff, that's totally different. But I get what you're saying. Just take pills. There you go. Just take them and then you're good. That's just proving there is something wrong with me, and I need this pill. And then imagine if one day you run out of pills. It's not going to be a fun day.
Yeah, you don't depend on something or someone else. That's where I was at. Like, you can ask my mom too. Like, I would flush them down the toilet when I was 14, 15 years old, and she would get so frustrated with me. And I would say, I think I like had that thrivey thing inside of me. I would say, I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't want to feel like I need this thing. And she would be like, well, it's good for you right now to get where you need to be. Or sometimes people just need this in their life right now. But I knew that it was making me feel weak. I knew that I didn't need it. I just knew, even though I was expressing signs of depression and anxiety, I was doing all kinds of, I was self-harming. It was really bad. I needed help, but that's not what I needed. And it did change my brain chemicals for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm personally not a fan, because it took me over a year to get off of an SSRI, and it was very difficult, and it just had a lot of negative effects. But and Xanax is understood, or Ativan, same thing, kind of thing. Benzodiazepines are understood to have, in a sense, I don't want to say the word addictive, but a sort of an addictive nature, where your brain gets used to that, the restructuring of your GABA. So,
Yeah.
oh, Mindy, I love that. That's awesome. You know what,
So
Mindy? I don't even care if you want to go through with someone else and it's not me, even though you love me. I don't care. I want you to get better. So you do whatever you have to do. If you like Matt, you go with Matt. And then you know what? Matt's going to call me the entire time and ask me questions. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
we want to help as many people as possible, because
Yeah.
it's such a ridiculous, crazy, stupid thing that people can get over quickly, and it's just not, it's just ridiculous that like people suffer with it just because they don't know about it, but they really don't have a way of knowing about it, unfortunately. So like one of the main things, if you guys don't take anything from this, the thing that you do need to take away from this is that it's not the thing that's scary. It's not the throwing up. It's not the spider. It's not, I don't know what else are people afraid of?
Needles.
Needles. It's not the needle. It's the fact that you don't believe that you can tolerate the intense emotions that you create. Unfortunately, you create them around that particular event. You can't control your sensations. You feel like you can't control your thoughts, your emotions. That's what it is. Yeah, clowns. That's all it is. It's not the event. And I always go back to the spider one. How can that one weird person pick up a spider, let it crawl all over them, and think it's the cutest thing in the world? But then there are people who would run down the street if they saw a spider.
All right.
It's not the event, and or the thing, and once you realize that, that's when you realize, oh, okay, so I am in control. I am in control, and that's when you can make a change and start to, there you go, uncreate things like you just
Yes.
said there.
Yes, and you know what, Mindy? What you're showing is, to me, is the most important thing when you're learning to thrive. I don't think we talk about it enough. It's attitude. Because if you have the right attitude even to start, you're good. Because we already know the program works. It's all about your mentality, like especially going into it. You can even go into it like me. I went into it with a million resistances and not the greatest attitude in the world, and it still worked on me. So if you go into it really excited and really positive and like, I want to do this, I can do this, okay, you're already like steps ahead of somebody like me. So good job.
Yeah, there's literally, like, the founder of our program goes as far as to say, this isn't the right one, but it's literally impossible if you work these freaking pages the way that they're written and work with your coach. It's impossible to not overcome this.
Right, right.
And there's no
Yeah.
exposure. It's amazing. If you put the work in, you can't screw it up. If you don't put the work in, like anything else in life, you're probably not going to get far. You might get a little bit better, but we don't want people to get better. We don't want people to just get better at avoiding, get better at
Right.
choosing more hygienic restaurants. That's no way to live. We want people to be like, I'm over this. I don't care about it anymore. Yeah, I don't love it, because if you did love it, you would be an insane person. Nobody loves it. But you know that, hey, if it happens, I can deal with it. It might be really gross, but I can deal with it. That's the huge difference here.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you don't want to. What I realized for me, again, another light bulb moment I had, was that I was spending every single moment and every day of my life worrying about something that might happen every 10 years, and I ruined and I let it steal everything that could have been, and all those experiences. And I mean, some people don't have kids, some people just completely give all their power away. And I'm just
like Trish is saying right there, her friend's never been on a plane.
Yeah, that's actually something Rob mentions. He says that especially in the UK, there's like a huge amount of people that have this phobia of flying, but none of them have ever even been on a plane. And it doesn't, there you go. That tells you right there that it doesn't make any sense. It's not about the plane at all. It's about the emotions and the reactions you create around something that you believe is scary.
They feel trapped in that metal thing flying 600 miles an hour in the sky. They can't control their emotions. They can't get up and leave.
Yeah.
How could it be the thing if you look around and there are people like somebody like me who'd be having a drink, listening to music? That it's just not, it's not the thing. And once you realize that, that's when the shift happens, and you realize I can get over this stupid thing that unfortunately you're creating unintentionally. And I think the founder of the program even says your phobia is never older than 2 days. So the only reason you have, if you've had it for 50 years, the only reason you still have it is because of the way that you've been thinking about it for the past 2 days. Brooding, catastrophic thinking, this is the worst thing in the world, I can't control it, I need to control it, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If you stop that for 2 days, you will get over it.
Well, I love that point, because it's really like how much active, I don't want to use the word implicit, that's not the right word, memory that we have. So if you can't think, what was I doing exactly a week ago on Monday afternoon at 3? Well, then that's not when you, how do I explain? Your phobia, like you said, is only, you're keeping it alive every single day. You're the one blowing air into the balloon. And if you just stop blowing air into that balloon, it will not be there anymore. It goes away. And that's what you see throughout the Thrive program. Every week, every chapter, it just starts shrinking, and you get bigger. You feel more powerful. You feel stronger. You start loving your life. You start loving yourself. It's like you just get all your freedom back. So, okay. That's awesome. So, is that Lily? Is that your name? Or, okay. Is that person related to you?
No.
No? Okay.
It kind of looks like it. It almost could be. I don't have the PH though in my name.
Oh, right. Okay. I just didn't know if it was a... Yeah, so if anybody wants to get a hold of, either Matt or I, just send us a message and we'll answer right away. Again, we can do free discovery calls. We can set that up. We can answer any questions that you might have about the program. There's no pressure ever. We're just here to help people because we know exactly what it was like on the other side. So.
And guys, the thing too is that with this program, you not only know what you're paying for up front, unlike therapy, and I'm going to talk about therapy like that because I've been in therapy. You know what you're paying for up front, and you know that at the end of the engagement with the coach, it only stops when you say, I feel amazing, I do not need you anymore, I'm thriving in all areas of life. It's not, I don't have emetophobia anymore. That goes away because you're thriving in all areas of life. So even if it takes 8, 9, 10 sessions, you're going to end the engagement if you put the work in without emetophobia. It's not, hey, you have 8 weeks, so you better get to work, and if you don't, then you're screwed and you're going to have to try something else. It ends when you say, I don't need you anymore. The best thing that can happen in our business is that we get fired after 8 sessions because they just don't need us anymore. And then they go tell everybody else how amazing the program is.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, exactly.
I needed an extra session. I was one of those people who needed an extra session because I stopped putting the work in. I felt the high of the whole Thrive thing after the 8 weeks, and I stopped managing my thinking. I thought that I was just like on top of the world and invincible, and like 2 days later, I felt awful. And I had another session with my coach, and he was like, "That's because you stopped doing everything. This is an active thing. You have to actively manage your thoughts. You haven't built the new habits because you have 36 years of bad habits. Obviously, you gotta. We always say thrive is a doing thing. You have to keep doing it. It's not something that Lauren will just do to you or do for you or anything like that. But I think, what does the website say? I think 23,000 people have overcome emetophobia with us at this point, and 60,000 total people, over 60,000, have built strong mental health with us for one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And we, just so you know, I'm not sure if your name is James. I'm sorry if that's not true. But the person that has a friend, we also have a fear of flying
Oh yeah,
manual that
yeah.
we addressed. Yeah. I don't have it in front of me either, but we have several different manuals depending on what your needs are. And we definitely have an emetophobia manual. It's my favorite one. But
So I don't know if anybody has any other questions, but the biggest compliment that you could do and the best way to help us if you feel like doing something nice for two strangers, well, actually, you know a couple of these people, is just invite people. We plan on doing more of these every week
yeah.
because the awareness is just not there. It's not there, and people need this kind of help. And you'll notice that this is different. We're not giving you tips on how to avoid throwing up. We're going to sound a lot different than the groups you might be part of or the comment sections on Instagram, things like that, because we don't want to help you continue to suffer with this in more creative ways. We want to help you overcome this and stop dealing with this stupid thing. So if it sounds different, it's because it is different, and that's why it works. So if you know people who, even if it's not emetophobia, it doesn't matter. The fear of flying thing, all this stuff is solved the same exact ways. If you know other people who should be here listening to us, if you think that we were even kind of interesting, please invite them the next time you see that we're going to do this. They'll hopefully love you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have any ideas of what you want us to talk about or like questions or things like that, we can create the lives based on those main questions. And because I definitely wanted to talk about avoidance and how it makes the phobia worse and bigger. I definitely wanted to touch on that. So.
Yeah. So I don't have anything else. We've gone an hour. Unless you do, you want to end it with something
Um.
exciting, encouraging, anything that you have? Or?
I mean, I could probably talk about it forever. It's interesting because it's a job that you just love and enjoy, and you love talking about these things, and you love helping people and or helping them help themselves. And I think that's the one thing that really makes what we do different is that we're not in authority and we're not telling you what to do. We're showing you how you can cure yourself. And
That's a good
I
point.
think, yeah, I think that's a really encouraging way to end it. And then again, like you said, if anybody is listening and wants to share our live, and then also like that we deal with a range of different mental health issues, not just emetophobia. This is a specific live about emetophobia, obviously, but we're going to be touching on all kinds of different topics, and we're open to suggestions. And again, if anybody wants to sign up with either one of us, please just send us a DM. Yeah, and we'll get started right away.
All right, awesome.
And thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And we're assuming you're probably all in the U.S. If you are, then have a good night. And if not, then I don't know, probably have an even later night, depending on where you are.
Okay. And also, we're gonna plan to be here at the same time next week, right?
I think so, yeah. If anything, we should keep it consistent. I think I can do that. I'll make it work one way or another, even if I don't think I can. Actually, hang on, let me just tell you right now because I do have my calendar. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you guys. And yes, please share our live. Please, please, please. Anybody and everybody. We just got started, so we're gonna come up with some more interesting content and get better on camera. You know. And thank you for showing up. Please
Yeah.
come next week too.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll
All
see you
right.
next time. Take care.
Good night.